All right, cool. Let's try. Let me see here. Why don't you pick the next one?
How about the next one? Along was it Kaisen Dana? Or
Let's
Dana?
check out. Yeah, let's check out Kaisen.
Okay, so the loading is really, really different. Okay, cool. It's black. As you scroll, things start to appear. That seems to be fashionable to animate content as it comes in.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just puts. We had an episode about how we just make it more compelling during the load phase. So I like it. I think it's a nice touch, especially if you're loading a lot of like heavy visuals.
Yeah, what's interesting is like the layout, it's quite condensed to the top when it first loads, but as you go down, it takes the full width, which I think is really nice on widescreens. And then, you know, obviously it repositions itself for mobile. So yeah, it's very dark. I mean, that's one thing that becomes quite apparent.
Dark mode.
I'm going to go.
Dark mode's trendy.
I don't really like dark mode personally. So I've tapped on brand design. So now
I'm a big dark mode guy. So that we'll have to debate that later on.
Yeah. So I've tapped on brand design. It says I build and activate brands through strategy, emotion, visuals, and creative expression. I like to make the little things better and the big things awesome. So that's really cool. He's just giving his philosophy. Again, the type. Again, we might because we have accessibility stuff drilled into us, Ryan, from like the last how many years now, working on stuff like this. But I think I know designers like subtlety, and so like really subtle colors, like the transition between them, but it does make things a bit hard to actually read. The video stuff I really like. He's got videos playing that instead of having just a static image, that becomes part of the case study
cool.
or the introduction.
Oh wow, he was the lead UX designer for Boosted Boards, which is like an electric skateboard company. That's really cool.
No, that's very nice.
Super cool.
So you should go into say Boosted, which is on the case studies. Is the image cropped there? That's a bit like the fade. Oh wait a second, I think I know what's happened. That image is not so the gradient on the image doesn't match the background, and I don't think it's been. My guess is this was not designed for a widescreen, and that's why that's doing that. So yeah, this is the thing. I mean, it's really hard for individuals to test their site on multiple devices because what's the expectation there? But that's pretty hard. The type's quite nice. He does go into quite a bit of detail. Very visual, a lot of visual graphics. Centerline text, I don't know if that's really a good thing, but then the imagery is really, really tight. I mean, I have to say, like, obviously, because this is like the
the other thing to note too is so Kaisen's doing an awesome job of branding himself not only as like a UX digital designer, but also an art director. So
Yeah.
I think this is a really strong portfolio for that art director piece. Where if you're going to put that on your portfolio, you have to have like very strong visuals to justify that. So yeah, I think this is like a really, really good example for anybody that's looking for more of like brand design and art direction. I would definitely check this one out. We also,
I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
Sorry, I want to ask you something. What do you think about a designer who actually just hires an engineer to build the site for them? Because I think there's a lot of owners expecting the designer to build the site themselves, and that's an actual like proper skill. And how do you realistically do that if you've got a full-time job? That's the question, like, you know.
Well, I would say I would be completely fine if they outsourced it, right? Because it's very rare, unless you're working at like a startup, that you're doing the visual design, then you're coding it, and then you're testing it. Like, I think outsourcing it just shows that you know what you're good at and you're doubling down on your core skill set. I think that's harder, where everyone wants to take it on. Designers, the really good designers that I know tend to like own and be involved in the process end to end. But I'd be completely fine with that if it had said like my friend developed it and I paid them to do it. Like, why not?
Yeah, no, it's a bit like, I suppose, if you're a rapper and you're having a ghostwriter, that's the question. Like, how much of the authenticity of the person? But then if these are technical skills which are really...
See, I would argue it's like a rapper that's like... It's like a rapper that the producer's making the beat, and then the rapper's still rapping over it. Versus, like, the rapper doesn't need to be an expert in making the beat, but the beat is like what makes the song possible. So the website is what brings the visuals to life. I don't know. Maybe it's a bad metaphor, but That's kind of how
No.
I think about it.
I think you're right. I mean, especially because they're like the producer, the one who's actually putting it all together. But the core message is still coming from the artist, right? So
Yeah.
which is why I think a lot of designers, and I would recommend designers thinking about using something like Wix or like some of the other sort of site making tools. Because the other things, like you want to think about performance and making sure the site is secure. You can't be an expert in everything.
Yeah, I think that's the
but
thing.
anyways,
I think that's like a perfect summary, though. Like, you can't be an expert in everything. Why not outsource or like hand it off to someone else that can do the job more effectively? Also, you have to imagine if you're spending most of your time being a visual designer, there's going to be people that are going to be able to code and produce a high quality website and much faster. So if you're valuing your time, if anything, I think it shows that your ability to prioritize and making sure that you're focusing on what you're good at. I have a question for you though. Stepping back, is a UX design portfolio really necessary?
I mean, from my own personal experience, having a slide deck with free case studies and sending people links, it has actually been more effective than an actual website. And I'm only saying that, but then after full disclosure, my website hasn't been updated in over 6 years. So sending people there as an example of my work has been not necessarily the thing which I've been using. One thing I have seen though is that some companies, when you apply for them, they expect to have a site or a PDF, which I think is weird for like UX designers, especially if you like. I have a lot of prototypes and animation in the work that I do. You can only really feel the experience and see like having the static visual and then the animated thing. The whole thing just pops when you see the animation. It really just, you understand like what's going on. Well, if it's just static visual, you're looking at, well, the shadows that they're using and like small details which you might not have control over because that's part of the design system or the brand or whatever, or the operating system that you're working on. So having the animation, I think, is so important. And so what I like to do is have animated GIFs that you put into slide decks and then share that. So then you can tell the story. And the slide deck as a format works really well to storytelling because each slide can focus on a different portion of the project. And obviously limited space forces you to just put everything on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but at the same time, for especially junior folks, or you need a place where people can just see your work, especially if you're freelancing, especially if you're selling yourself as your own company, you need to have case studies.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, it's based on circumstance. I would say if you're more junior, I actually think it adds more value. When you're more senior and you have multiple roles at companies, I don't know that you're gonna be more into the strategy world. So sure, I think it'd be helpful, but when you're trying to, the best value of a UX portfolio or just like a design portfolio in general is that it is an opportunity to showcase your personality. So like, let your personality come through. Like, we are far removed from the land of like trying to convey that in a CV, which is like the opposite of what you should do for UX, like anybody that's a visual designer, because it's like, well, let me use words to demonstrate how creative and unique and like thoughtful I am. So, that's kind of like just some thoughts. I wanted to get that, and then going back to this design from Kaisen, what were your other thoughts?
I think really strong visuals. Again, these are three completely different portfolios of different focuses, and so I think it's really nice.